All right, folks, we're back. We are here this week with the jammin' Benjamin Roggie. How's it going?
It's going good.
Thanks for coming. You moved away from us, or ran away from us, for a couple of years.
We had both.
Wanted to get you back on the podcast, or get you on the podcast to talk a little bit, and then you moved to North Carolina. We were just like, see you later. I'm not doing the snow anymore. And so we were kind of away from you for 2 years? 2 years?
2 years, yes.
Okay.
Just about to February to April, so 2 years and 2 months.
Okay. What was that like? A little different, because you're a homegrown kid from this area.
Been here my whole life, yeah.
What was that like to move somewhere else?
It was an adjustment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we went down because our son's down there and wanted to kind of be nearby where he was, and we kept spreading our circle for a house, got bigger and bigger and bigger until we ended up being about an hour away.
Until you were back in New York and you just had to
Well,
commute back.
it was not quite that bad, but we were almost like 5 minutes from 95, so which is nice for people that are driving through. They can stop in.
Yeah. All the snowbirds.
Yeah,
That know you.
that's
Had a
pretty
place
much
to
what
stay
it
in
was. Yeah.
North Carolina.
Yeah, we had several people stop,
Yeah.
family and friends. So, yeah.
I was like that. Like I grew up here, and I was like, I'm never leaving. I'm going to stay here forever. Homebody through and through. And then I guess God and life had different plans for me, and adjustment is a good word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Terrifying, excruciating.
It was, plus I'm kind of an introvert, so
Yeah.
so it was, yeah. We definitely enjoyed our time down there. So
A little bit different weather.
yeah.
A little bit nicer.
The winters are chilly,
Okay.
but there's no snow. So that's nice. Didn't have to shovel.
Yeah. And now you're back.
We are back. Yes, we moved April 5th. We brought everything up here, and
Why?
my sister had passed away back in August, and we came back up for all that stuff, and it was very hard on both of us. And my sister and I were pretty close, and I don't know, it's just got us thinking. We got back home, and our daughter-in-law, we walked in the door, and first thing she said to us was, "You guys are moving back to New York, aren't you?" We're like, "No." And then we get home, and then we have good friends that we got to know, and they came over to visit maybe the next day, and she walks in, first thing she said, "So when you moving back to New York?" And we're like, honestly, we hadn't even talked about it. I mean, maybe thought about it, but we hadn't talked about it, Luann and I. But that got us thinking. And
Yeah, sometimes as soon as you start start the process, it kind of snowballs.
Yeah, and then even when we were up here, there was an open house at a house right in town, and I said, "Hey, you want to stop? It's fun going through a house, you know."
Yeah.
But still, even didn't have any idea that we were gonna start talking about moving back. But that was a really nice house.
Yeah.
But so that led us to start praying and really seeking the Lord on what we wanted to do, and we decided that we were going to pursue. Luann got a word that we were going to just pursue for her personally, but I grabbed onto it too.
Right.
to just start really, really praying about it, because we did like it down there. We were at the church that Jeff went to, and we just got to know a lot of people and great group of people. So that was our joy, going to church. I mean, the people there were awesome, and so that was a tough one to leave there, and
Yeah.
and I mean, we knew we were attending a church up here anyways before we moved, so
Okay.
so that was,
You got to plug back in.
we plugged back into there, and,
Nice.
and of course we already knew everybody, so that was so. But
were you guys on the same page, or was it like one wanted to stay more than the other? That's a tough thing. Like I mean, it's not like you guys don't have some marriage expertise at this point.
We're still learning.
There you go. You heard it here.
I think we were pretty well together with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we had any at the same time. It's just weird because we usually aren't like that. It's usually Luann will come up with an idea, and then I'll be like holding the reins, and holding back, and I think that's my personality. I guess.
Nick and Brielle had their episode, one of their last episodes, and they talked about the one is the balloon and one is the string.
Oh yeah.
And so it sounds like Luann's a little bit more of the balloon, and you're a little bit more of the of the string. Interesting.
That could be somewhat, because she also has, there's 10 siblings in her family, and everyone but her, when we moved, everyone but her still lived around here within a 10-mile radius.
Right.
So they were, especially the girls, weren't super happy about us moving, and a lot of friends, and so that was definitely a draw. Her and her sister Sandy are very close, and it was always hard when we came up, and then when we left to go back down, it was hard for the two of them. So that was not all of it was because of that, but I mean, I found out later that Luann was really missing her family more than what she was saying. She said at one time that it's been a long time since that I miss my family, and I'm like, you've been holding that in all this time, or what?
Right.
But
you're not a mind reader, Ben?
I'm not. No, and it never. I don't think that's ever going to happen. So don't even think about it when down the road.
All hope is lost.
So so that was probably 70-80% of the reason to think about moving back. We felt like with Jeff, I mean, we knew it was going to be a different thing for him, because it was great for us to be down there. I mean, we were an hour away, but that's not very far.
Yeah, not compared to how long is it?
It's about, I always figured 12. 12. But you can do it in 10 and a half, 11 if you
don't have kids in the car, and you don't stop.
If you only stop once and keep the car rolling as you put gas in it.
I think it takes me 12 hours to get to Walmart sometimes from town. Yeah.
But
well, that's cool.
So
we're happy to have you back.
So here we are. Yeah, we have a cute little house over on Eugene Street, and loving it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, quite a transition, quite a lot of movement. It's going out of your comfort zone, especially to live somewhere. That's something you've never done before.
Right. So it's one thing to go visit for a week or two or a month.
Did you learn anything about yourself in that process?
Well, I learned a lot, actually, because my relationship with the Lord, I just felt the last long time that I was pretty stagnant. And I really felt like I grew these last 2 years incredibly, just a lot, drawing closer to the Lord again, and it felt great. It was a lot to do with the church that we were attending.
Sure,
they were very, full of the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, and the pastor was awesome. Just felt freedom. And that's been a long time that I felt that way about going to church. But that helped. And then just to grow and meet my neighbors and stuff like that.
Right, you haven't done that?
I haven't had to do. I mean,
ever,
because I lived around here. I knew everybody around me.
Right.
So we were working on our house before we moved into it, and my neighbor was on the one side of me. He has a shed almost right back to back to mine. And I was working. I had my saws set up, and I was cutting wood and all that stuff. He was coming back and forth to his shed, and I was going out to my shed. And finally, I'm thinking, I should probably... No, I'm not going to do it yet. So the next time I come out, he was walking towards the shed when I was walking towards the shed. And I said, this is crazy. I'll go over.
Yeah.
So then got to meet him and visit with him. And it was just way out of my comfort zone, because I'm pretty
comfortable.
I'm pretty comfortable just to hang out by myself.
Be in your own lane. Yeah, for sure.
So
that's hilarious.
So
was he an introvert too? Like, is he?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys are like the two crabs, like that are like checking each other out. Like, who's gonna make the first move?
He was a different sort of guy, way worse than what I thought I was. You know? So I told Luann on the way. Well, then Luann come out and his wife come out. So then we spent 15, 20 minutes, probably just maybe even longer, probably a half hour, sharing our life and where we're from and all that stuff. So
that's neat.
And so we got to meet him, and then the other neighbors across the street, she come over. Ended up, their names were John and Kathy.
No kidding.
Which was like, we looked at each other like, what? John
Those
and Kathy?
are my aunt and uncle's names. Would have been your...
Kathy is our niece.
Okay.
Luann's niece.
Yeah.
But.
And her husband was John, who passed away from a heart attack.
That's correct.
So kind of interesting.
And she comes over, and she's very outgoing, which is what both of us needed.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody like that. And she come over, and my name is Kathy. And so we introduced ourselves, and her and Luann just right away hit it off. And so then a couple of weeks later, we finally met John at their church. They invited us to their church. Their pastor was doing a teaching on church history, I think it was.
Okay.
And so they invited us. We said, sure, we'll go. And they're very involved in their church. So, so then we met him, and he's such a great guy, and her too. So we started hanging out with them, and their interests were complete opposite of ours.
No kidding. Yeah.
They weren't into sports, and
yeah.
So and even card games. We said, you guys play cards? Like, no.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Okay. So they called us.
There's people like that out there.
Yeah, they called us one evening. I got home. I was helping out. I worked with my son, Jeff, like 2 or 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Doing flooring. And so, you guys want to come over and have some ice cream and pie? And I'm like, pie? Yeah. And we'll play cards. Language. And Luann and I looked at each other like, yeah, that'd be fun. We'll teach you some card games.
No kidding.
So we played cards. I mean, they were going out of their way to try to
for sure
have interest in our interests too.
Yeah, isn't that important?
Because really, they didn't do much. I mean, they go to church when church doors are open. You know how that is. Mm-hmm. They were there because he was graduated from seminary and not a pastor, but certainly could be. I mean, so and then they went to a few basketball games with us. And,
no kidding.
And never had any interest. Like John was not into sports growing up, and Kathy wasn't either. And so, and a couple of baseball games, the local, I guess it would be like the New York Penn League. There was a team right nearby, and they went with us there a couple times.
Wow, okay.
I don't think they enjoyed it, but they were just doing it because we had so much in common other than just that, not being, with the sports and stuff. But it was fun for us because they're asking questions. Why'd they do that? What's that? And we're like, because Luann's like, she knows more about baseball than I do probably. Yeah. Growing up with 4 brothers.
Right. So, and I mean, she's been in her fair share of softball and
softball.
Games,
yeah. She was, Mm-hmm. So they were understanding us when we told them that we were going to move back to New York, and really hard for her because, I mean, I guess women are different when they have friends, that kind of stuff.
Are you sure?
So, yeah. Well, sure. I'm finding stuff out as I get older.
It's established science at this point.
But
yeah.
So
that's cool. I mean, the fact that they would go out of their way to do stuff that they don't necessarily enjoy, just for fellowship. Yeah,
just so they
that's
could
cool.
Be
that's
with
a good
us,
example.
They really, like Kathy said, we really don't have. I mean, we have our church family, but friends are not. I mean, they're not that. When you think about it, they're not that easy to come by when you have, especially a couple.
Yeah,
and yeah. So, and John, very handy. He helped me with a lot of stuff. We changed out some windows in our house, and I went over and did some flooring for him, and he's very handy. So
yeah. There's a couple things that you said as far as card games. When you're from Lewis County in northern New York and you don't know what card games are.
I'm surprised. I grew up playing cards.
Everybody does,
yeah.
Right? And so when I moved to Connecticut too, it was like, everybody was like, we don't really play games. Like, we don't really play board games that much. We don't play card games. My wife's family.
No. Right.
So Stephanie, the last 5, 6, 7, 2008, 7 years we've been together, she's been like, now she's a card game. Now she's a card gamer. Like,
right.
She's
have
bought
to be.
In. Yeah. Helps to pass the time. Yeah. But no, it's just funny because people will hear this and they'll be like, well, like what? Because it's just us. Like, we're insulated in our little bubble up here. The other thing is comfortable complacency. Have you ever heard of that phrase before? Yeah. It's kind of like when you're in your comfort zone, sometimes you actually need something to push you out to learn more about yourself. That's exactly what you went through.
That sums our move and living down there, I think, to a T.
Well, now you're officially a traveler. You know, you've seen the whole East Coast. You've lived along the coast.
Many times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know really how to describe you, Ben. A mentor, a father figure, a leader, a businessman, a laborer who's worked with your hands your entire life. That's something that we'll get into. A coach. You know, and on that front, a good ball player, father, a husband, you know, a big part of your community wherever you go. Don't even have to be in the same place.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of different ways that we could go with this. But one thing that stood out when I was thinking about, okay, Ben's coming on, how do I not make this a 9-hour podcast? I was like, maybe I could center it around work ethic a little bit. You're one of the guys that... When I see you, that's like one of the first things that comes to mind. Hard worker, diligent, passionate, and very committed to what you're doing. So with that in mind, can you, this is going to sound like a right-hand turn, but can you talk about your childhood a little bit growing up and how that kind of facilitated that work ethic?
Yeah, definitely. I grew up on a dairy farm, and it's funny because some of my friends that I had were town kids. I mean, back in the day, that was big difference.
Yeah.
And so my day was getting up in the morning early.
What time?
Supposed to get up around 5:30 or so, but most of the time my mom would have to come in several times. Get up!
5 more minutes, Mom. 5 more minutes.
And then we'd go out to the barn and do chores, and we all had the first few years. I mean, I have an older brother, and then my sister. That was all. There's the 3 of us, and then my parents started taking in foster children. But for the first few years, we were on the farm, and I was probably 2nd grade when we moved on the farm. So we obviously didn't do that much then.
Right.
And but then as we got older, we all had I was driving tractor at 8 or 9 probably. I mean,
Child Protective Services, get them out there.
We didn't have very big tractors. They were just little things.
Isn't that crazy nowadays?
Yeah. No, I
get in trouble.
So
different time.
I mean, I wouldn't do field work with the tractors, but I'd they'd let me drive down the lane or go get the cows or something like that with it. Which, well, I don't know if I want to get into that part.
You don't have to tell the deep, dark secrets of the farm.
I went to the floor with the gas pedal most of the time, no matter what I was doing.
How fast can a tractor do anyways?
Oh, maybe 12.
12?
Those little ones. But it was pegged to the floor, and I'd be going down the field, bouncing up and down. But anyways, and then we each had our chore to do. They did. Mom and Dad divvied it out and said, "You guys are okay. You do this tonight and feed the cows or whatever." And so at a young age, we all learned how to work. And it wasn't, I think back a lot of times about my growing up on a farm, and, we'd get home from school, well, even in the morning, let me finish that. We had, my dad drove school bus, and he had our route where we lived, so he would have to leave around 10 to 8, I believe it was, or quarter of, go down to school and get the bus, and then when he come back, he just picked up the kids in New Bremen and then turned around at the Christian View Hotel and then came back down and went down our road. So it wasn't a big run. It was probably 3 miles. Mm-hmm. And so we knew when he went by our house heading towards New Bremen that we had about 25 minutes to get ready. So we'd finish up the chores, have breakfast, and then whatever, change, shower, whatever. And usually we were ready about the time the bus got to our house, and then we'd all jump on the bus and go to school. So then at night we'd get home, and 4-ish, 3:30, 4 o'clock, and we had chores to do at 4, like we'd get ready for the milking, and then go back in the house and have dinner, supper, and then wolf it down, and then go out in the barn as soon as we were done and milk the cows, and then we were done.
Wow.
So that's our life. Day. And summertime, we obviously had stuff to do all day, like haying, putting in hay and crops and playing. We had a lot of time to play.
Okay, what year was this? What era?
We bought the farm around 63.
Okay. So when people are thinking playing, it's not video games.
No.
It's not TV.
It's shooting baskets, playing softball in the
imagination
yard,
in the woods.
Football, going out in the woods. Yeah, we had some of the most memorable things that we would do is in the summertime. Everyone went out on the front yard, the whole family, and played softball. And that's where I got my love for softball, was way back then.
What a good memory.
And and especially was fun when we had foster kids, and they would, my parents made them go play, and we all were out there. There was times we'd have 7 or 8 people in the house, my dad and mom, and we all played. So
it's a pretty valuable experience.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And my mom was the all-time pitcher. She loved pitching.
She'd bring the heat?
Yeah, she'd bring it. For us, it was. We were little. And, but our yard was, when we were kids, it seemed like it took forever to run from the house to the road.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty long, but not, now it's, I could probably do it in 35 steps or something, but anyways.
Everything when you're a kid.
But my mom made a rule that if you hit it over the road, it's an out.
Okay. That's like kickball rules. You hit it too far, you're out.
Yeah. Because the thing is, there was a hayfield usually on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
And the ball would go in there, and you'd
it's gone.
You'd lose it, and that's the only ball we had. So
that's awesome.
So that was
kind of the level of sport. Yeah.
Big highlight for me in the summers. It seemed like, for years that's what we did. And one thing I wanted to mention about that is, I was talking about the town kids, my friends and stuff, and I used to go downtown I had a really good friend of mine that lived right down in Beaver Falls. I'd ride my bike down and we'd hang out for the day and just run around town and do all that stuff. But I look back at it and I do not ever remember or feeling like my life sucked. Because it was, that's what we did. I mean, it was,
right.
And my brother and I, we'd come up with weird games out in the barn, just stuff like that. We'd play tag with corncob chunks like about this big, and
like a throwing tag.
Yeah, you get hit, and you're out, and that hurt.
Out cold.
Yeah, but I mean, my dad would not like it, but we had calf pens.
Okay,
so that's where we'd feed them in there and all that stuff. But it was big, pretty good size, and we'd ride them like we were in rodeo. No
way. That's awesome.
And they'd get flying around there, bang against the wall, oh
no!
And then
I'm surprised you didn't get into that for a career.
I know, right?
Cowboy.
We I can remember hearing the milk house door shut. Like, man, Dad's coming. Too late. We got caught, and we'd get yelled at.
That's how it goes.
Quit doing that to the calves.
You don't get rid of the you don't get away with it.
Yeah,
almost never.
So so that was all the way through till probably my freshman or sophomore year in high school, and then I was thinking of, like, I got my driving license when I was a sophomore.
Okay. Yep.
And kind of got a hand-me-down car that was
Freedom.
mine. Yeah. So I wasn't. I mean, I still had to help with chores and things like that, but and even in the summer I did. But I started playing summer basketball and getting into that part of my life, and would have probably played more sports, but I didn't. I just played basketball. So, which I super enjoyed. And
did you listen to Bob Chamberlain's episode?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about like his coach and your guys' coach, and it was good days of basketball.
Yeah, he was a good teammate.
Yeah,
he was, and he was my neighbor too growing up.
Oh, really?
And he used to pick me up sometimes for practice, and I felt good about that because he's Bob Chamberlain. He's a starter and he's really good. He's one of our best players, and I tell my mom, Bob called, said he'll pick me up. Isn't that cool?
Isn't that cool?
But yeah.
What's the age difference? What have you been the same age?
We graduated together. Okay. Yeah. But I think
cool.
Bob was a little younger, but it's So
yeah, so I would imagine that work ethic translated into the early growing up on a farm, growing up with responsibility.
Yeah, definitely.
Would definitely translate into high school sports, and then into career. So
yeah, it took a while, but it did. You know, to where I am now. I mean, but so yeah. So I remember I decided I wanted to run cross country. I think I might have been junior high, like 7th or 8th grade, and I got a call. They said that we're going to have practice on Saturday morning. Or no, a meeting. We're having a meeting on Saturday morning. We're going to get shoes. Back then, you got handed shoes that somebody else wore the year before.
Nice. Like a bowling alley.
Now I think about it, it's like, that's kind of gross. I mean, as much as expensive it is these days, because everybody has to buy their own shoes.
Right.
Except for basketball. We bought our own sneakers for that. But I kind of think I would fork up the money instead of having my kids wear somebody else's shoes. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. But so I told my dad Saturdays were hard, especially when there wasn't school, because we had Saturday chores, some stuff that had to be done. And that was Wayne and myself. That's my brother. Responsibility.
Yep.
So I said, "Hey, Dad, I got to go down to school at 10 o'clock and for cross country, and so can you give me a ride, or can I get a ride?" He goes, what are you going to school for?" I'm like, "Cross country." He goes, Isn't that running?" I go, "Yeah." He said, you can run. It's only 1.5 miles to school. All right. So I did. I run to school, and come to find out when I got there, it was a practice.
No.
So I'd already run 1.5 miles. I'm 12 years old.
Wow.
So they had practice, and I didn't know it was practice. So, and then I run around there. I got major blisters on my feet, and I decided that this is not for me. So that was it. I didn't do that anymore. So
that's wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I feel like nowadays that just wouldn't fly. And I think it's such a necessary thing for kids to learn. Like just that kind of it's running. Then run.
Yeah.
That's such a generation
before me. That was one disadvantage of being so close to the school.
Yeah, but 1.5 miles, both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to walk. Well, I ended up walking.
Hobbling
I
the
think
way
I walked
back
home because I had major blisters. I mean, my one blister was probably like that big on my heel.
Ugh.
But the shoes, because we got handed our shoes.
Yeah.
And who knows
what condition those were in.
And I probably didn't have socks on.
Word.
I don't know. But
there's something I love about that. I just love the
My dad was not mean at all, but that was his idea of, hey, if you got to run, you get a head start. You can run to school. That was his thinking, because
right.
I'm like, oh, okay, I'll run.
Yeah.
So,
man, I would have loved to hear what he thought about that, like way later on.
Yeah. My dad, unfortunately, didn't talk much about his earlier years, so I really don't know much about some things I would hear from other people. Did you know your dad did this? I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, I had no idea.
I thought he was an angel, and what do you do that for? But anyways, one other time I remember I was playing basketball with Giordano, and the first 2 or 3 weeks.
He wasn't a softie, from what I hear. Not very much of a softie.
Just 2 or 3 weeks, basically. Well, you would know about that. All we did was run.
Yeah, like a hell week type of thing.
Yeah, the first 2 weeks. I mean, it was just all drills and
cardio,
sprints and all that stuff. But we did do like layup drill and shooting drill and that kind of stuff for the most of the time. But it was all fundamental stuff.
Right.
And it was dribbling right-handed down the court, and then you did the cross dribbles and all that stuff. But I remember my legs were killing me. And every time I got home, I had to go out in the barn and help with chores. That was a given. Never complained. So I'm kind of limping and hobbling around, and my dad says, what happened to you? He goes, man, I mean, all we do is run and practice and all that. I mean, it's crazy. We get pushed hard. And I kind of give him the sob story. He goes, well, if you can't take it, quit. And I looked at him. I go, oh, I can take it.
How old were you?
Sophomore, maybe. So 17,
no,
16.
I can handle it. Thanks.
No, I'm not quitting.
Yep.
I like it too much. I like getting yelled at all the time. No, no.
Are you familiar? Okay, first, a couple things. So when Sean Harney was on, Dr. Sean Harney, he talked about working an entire summer to try to pay his way through med school. You hear that story?
Yes, I did. That was crazy.
At the end of the summer, the farmer had gone bankrupt, wasn't able to pay him. Well, now he couldn't pay for med school.
Yeah.
Comes home because he has no money in his bank account, barely enough for a bus ticket to get home. And his dad says, you're not quitting. Puts him on a bus, sends him back without
no money.
No money. Go figure it out.
That's a great story.
I love that story.
Yeah, that's one of my
And then just to see where he came from there, unbelievable medical career. And
I know.
What if he would have just given up right there? What if he would have just said,
yeah,
well, no, I can't.
I got goosebumps. Think about
so do I. Yeah. Amazing story. That just something about that generation was just kind of go figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And I think Sean mentioned something like that about his dad, that his dad wasn't mean or nothing, but this is just matter of fact.
It was just the way it was. It was kind of
yeah,
all right, young pup.
Yeah.
Off you go. Go figure it out.
Yeah.
This is good for you. Yeah, it just blows my mind. I get the same feeling with stories like that. Oh, just run to practice. Oh, you can just quit. Then just quit. and you're being like, no, I'm not going to quit. The fact that you said to him, no, I'm not going to do that, is years and years of hard work compiled up into this thing. There's a brain mechanism, and it's known as the AMCC. Are you familiar at all with that?
No.
Anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Basically, that they're correlating it with the will to live and the will to go on.
Okay, yeah.
And I often think about, like, it's actually when you do something that you don't want to do, this part of your brain grows.
Okay, yeah.
Interesting. And then, so that part of the brain is actually correlated with longevity and health later on in life. Yeah. So it's almost like, do things you don't want to do hard things that you don't want to do. It's good for you. And that message just doesn't get translated in our culture anymore.
No.
And like, as I'm hearing your story and, we would get up, 5:30 in the morning, we had to do chores and we had to go to work and, and then we would go to school all day, come back, do chores, and then eat, and then do chores again. Then it's like, I totally could see how the sophomore you is like, I don't quit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not quitting.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's just amazing.
Well, and not like when you're that young.
Yeah.
You don't even realize what's going on. And I don't even know if even I've said stuff probably to my son that, or kids, both of them, daughter and son, that stuff like that just comes out. And you probably, myself, I don't even know I'm doing it myself. Right. And I wonder if my dad had that much wisdom that he was using it for the future. Well, maybe. I don't know.
Well, think about it. Like the generation, like his generation and the generation before him, think about what they went through. We're talking like, what year was your dad born?
31. So he would have been
1931. Yeah. So like, it wasn't soft parenting back then. No. Okay. It was like, we're going to try to get food on the table because there's a world war going on, that kind of stuff. Or like, we're just coming out of the Great Depression. Because so you think about his father.
And all that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, when was his father born? Probably in like the late 1800s?
I would guess.
Or early 1900s.
At least the early 1900s, yeah.
So lived through the thick of the Great Depression. Like knew what it meant to go hungry.
Yeah.
Knew what it meant to like, have to have some hard conversations and do some hard things. Well, that does get passed down generationally. Mm-hmm. It definitely does. Mm-hmm. Same with the inverse. You live where you're comfortably complacent all the time and you don't get to develop at all. Well, guess what? You're not going to pass that on to your kids. They're not going to see you work for it. Like they're not going to see you working hard and doing things you don't want to do. There's so much value in that. And I just love hearing stories like this. It's just like when, like,
it is pretty cool.
So my grandpa was on, would be your brother-in-law, Ed.
Oh, yeah.
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 And the way he's talking about, like, for Christmas, we'd get like a piece of fruit and maybe a new pair of jeans. And I'm like,
heard that. Heard him say that. Like,
his dad worked hard and would go and get a barrel and make them toys out of the barrel. Like, I don't know. There's something to all that just fires me up.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah,
I mean, it obviously worked to your benefit in your work ethic and all throughout your life. I was lucky enough to work alongside you for 10 plus years on and off in school and stuff, putting in flooring. Mm-hmm. And like, it's very easy to see that your work ethic is different. And it's because of all of this stuff leading up to that in your childhood and in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I've never thought about that much about those years when I was a young kid having all this to do. But even that, it was part of our life. I mean, it wasn't like
it's just the way it was.
Forced labor. I mean, it was just that we were on a farm, so we had stuff we had to do.
Yeah.
And it's like some kids. I remember even when we were young, one of us always had to stay in the house and clean up the table and do the dishes. 'Cause my mom loved farming, so she as soon as we were done eating. All right, whose turn is it to clean the table up today? Oh, mine. It'd be like, so, and I used to pick on my sister because apparently she had hay fever or something that she would go in the barn and she'd get all stuffy. And I always picked on her because I said, yeah, you didn't have hay fever. That was just your excuse to not have to go in the barn, right. Especially when it was just the three of us.
Did she ever admit it?
She always said that she did have hay fever.
Yeah.
Now I can't.
Now you can't.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So, but Yeah, each one of us would have to stay by and stay in and do the dishes and wash the table off. And my mom would put the food away and all that, what was left. But usually there wasn't much left.
Yeah. Well, you work out pretty good appetite.
We ate pretty good, yeah. So, so that was,
Do you think that the younger generations are missing something about, I guess, hands-on work or work ethic? Do you think this next generation understands that? Because the truth is technologically we're advancing. Mm-hmm. Everything is about comfort and safety. Yeah. We're climate controlled all the time, like 70 degrees, pretty much. Mm-hmm. We're afraid to let our kids do hard things because we think it might hurt them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when I look at my younger years, I definitely think that kids today they're good workers, but sometimes it's a chore to them. Mm, right. Younger generation, like, they complain. Sure. But I don't think, even though when I got to be a senior, I kind of decided that I wasn't going to go in the barn anymore. So I very seldom went in the barn my senior year. And but I still was, I still had all that upbringing or whatever, working and all that. But yeah, I think the kids, I remember always saying through the years, man, these young people today, they need to work on a farm for a summer.
Yeah.
And right. Just, get that.
Yep. Or some mandatory missions work overseas in a third world country.
That would be really good. Yeah. Because then you'd feel like you're doing it. You have a purpose to do it. That would be really good.
And perspective.
I think that would change
how most of the rest of the world lives.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places
that would change their outlook on life, and it would only have to be like 2 weeks. Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll do that. My kids are pretty stinking young. I don't think I can take my 3 and my 1-year-old and drop them off in Honduras.
That wouldn't be good.
Not a good idea? Okay.
No.
But I think about stuff like that all the time, like with my girls. Like, how do you, we benefit a lot from generational wealth, and everybody will think like, oh, well, that's monetary. Well, actually, no, not necessarily. Mm-hmm. I come from a long line of godly men who have taken care of their families in such a profound way that when we look around the table at Thanksgiving, or we look around, like, that's generational wealth for you, my friend.
Yeah.
But like, they've also been wise financially and have passed that down. I wasn't given anything, but like all of these lessons learned, I was able to inherit those lessons learned and kind of start on my dad's shoulders, right? And kind of go that way.
Yeah.
When you have kids and you're doing well, how do you teach your kids those values?
That you're not doing well.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. Like, hey, pretend like maybe you can't have that thing, or, because there's something to a grateful heart and seeing the glass half full, and working hard for things. And it's almost like it's a new problem that when you're financially secure, like, you kind of have to focus on these issues to help develop that part of them, because life will throw you curveball after curveball, and nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah.
So you need to have resilient, strong children who grow to adults who can deal with adversity. It's like, it's a modern problem.
Yeah, what's going to happen if you raise them up just to think that, hey, I need a new pair of shoes, blah blah blah. So, and then when they're adults or young adults, and all of a sudden things aren't going so great.
Yeah, the first time life punches you in the mouth, you can't be so disoriented to let it crush you.
Yeah. And
you have to be strong. Yeah. You have to be resilient. Yeah. So how do you teach that?
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like conscious effort in our modern society, especially in America. My gosh, like, the air conditioning. Think about air conditioning. Like, how much of the world has like good air conditioning and power?
That's true.
You know, and
Yeah.
like, hey, if the grid goes out tomorrow, I need you to be resilient. Like, I need you to be part of the family and like part of the solution. Like,
that's good.
If you insulate your kids too much, man, as soon as they get punched in the mouth, it's like spiral time, you know, instead of self-correcting. So,
and how do they react when they see how you react to things? Like, say the internet goes down. Like, even now, the internet goes down. I'm like freaking
Chaos.
out. Like, come on. What's all this?
Why are you buffering? Knock
It's
it.
a buffer. Yeah. So you're like, here I am, you know, like should be able to just, you know, kind of go like this. And I'm sitting there going, what the? It's buffering again.
I've reset it 2 times in the last 30 seconds. What is the problem?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so true.
So thankfully, my kids don't live around me now, so they don't see me going like, what?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Okay, so you graduate high school.
Yes.
What was the thought after that? Was this a time? So you graduated in what year?
1975.
Was the push to like college trades?
Well, I was planning on going to college all the way through my junior year.
Okay.
And I wanted to be a school teacher. I thought I had it all planned out. And so between my junior and senior year, I decided that I'm going to do something besides working on the farm. So I got a job at PNC grocery store, which is now Tops in Lowville, which, if you want to say, you know, I always tell people, if, you know, this is a big world that we live in, get a job that you will enjoy. I mean, most of the time.
Yeah.
Not always, but, you know. So I did not like that job. But guess who I met there? It was Luann.
Oh.
And she was a cashier, and I was her bag boy most of the time.
Roger
and
that.
We got to be friends. And
You might say you had it in the bag.
I did, yes. And we goofed off together and just got to be friends. And then, and so by the end of the summer, we were getting pretty serious. So I decided that college is out of the question. I'm going to get married. So I went through my senior year. We dated the whole time, and I still worked at the store part-time. Well, it was part-time anyway, but so I changed my whole schedule my senior year. I had a full schedule, like fun stuff, like typing and you know, back
study
in the
halls.
day, study halls and
just basically a
just
useless
fun
year.
stuff. Yeah. So I think the only subject that was required back then was English.
Yeah, well.
So I had to take English. So I decided, all right, I'll take English first thing in the morning, the first period, and then I'll work at the PNC.
Oh.
10 to 4.
That was allowed back then?
Yeah, they called it work study.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I would go to school in the morning. I'd get up because I didn't even go in the barn in the morning my senior year. So I'd get up we had to be to school in homeroom at 20 after 8, and I'd get up about 10 after.
Have you ever seen that? There's a hilarious meme. Do you ever watch The Office?
Not much.
But like Michael Scott, you know Michael Scott.
Yeah.
Steve Carell.
Yeah.
There's a picture of him, and he's like sprinting. Like, it's just a picture, and he's like sprinting. And it says something like, me at 8:10 trying to get to work at 8 o'clock or something like that. Like, yeah, I can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay.
So
last minute.
I would change, get ready, go to school,
Yep.
get to homeroom by 20 after 8, whatever, 8:40, I think.
Yeah.
We had our first class. And by 9:20, I think, I was in my car heading to Lowville.
Okay.
To be there by 10. No, maybe it was even.
Seems like a good.
I was always on a push, so hence I pedal to the metal kind of deal. Always. So I would rush off to work 10 to 4, and then I wasn't going to play basketball my senior year.
Okay.
Because I was working, making $40 a week.
Woo! $40 a week. How much were you making an hour? Like a penny?
Two something, yeah. Really, it was like $2.75.
$2.75 an hour. Okay, so you were working like part-time, like 20 hours a
Yeah,
week?
so I'd get
$40.
About $40.
Boy, what would that get you back then? Probably a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, when did I buy my car? I bought a car sometime in there. I was still in school, and I bought a Chevy Chevelle.
Which is a sweet car.
Yeah, that was... Yeah.
How much was that? A nickel?
Like 2,000. I mean, it was...
2,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you could go back in time, this is a side note. People can hang with me if they want to.
Would I keep it?
Yes, but like imagine if somebody put like their life savings into buying as many of those as they could, just put them in a barn. Like how much they would be worth nowadays?
I know it. Yeah.
Like a mint Chevelle from like, what is it, 70s?
72, 71.
71
My
Chevelle.
car was, yeah.
Like mint condition right now, what's that got to be like?
Oh my gosh.
80
hundreds.
grand? Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's
90 grand.
I've seen them for sale, and they're always over 50,000. And
Yeah.
the nice ones are up in the 70s and 80s. Yeah.
$2,000.
Yeah.
You got your first
I think it was about 2,800, but then I traded in I asked my dad if I could trade in the car that I was driving.
Yep.
So I bought that during my senior year. Yeah, that was fast. So
don't get yourself in trouble.
Yeah. So why was I saying that?
Oh, I was correlating how much you made.
So I was not going to play basketball.
Right.
And I talked to one of my teammates, Steve Andre, which was his nickname was Clunker.
Clunker, I knew Clunker.
Yeah. And he says, "What? You're not going to play basketball? You got to play basketball. We're going to be good this year." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe
senior year."
So I didn't know if Coach had got word that I wasn't going to play. He probably didn't matter one way or the other. He doesn't force people to play. Mm-hmm. So I went into his room, and he said, "Hey," I mean, he was like, sometimes I refer to him as a Jekyll Hyde kind of guy, but off the court, he was like soft-spoken. If you were just like me, an individual going in to talk to him, he's fine.
Right.
So I went in, I said, "Mr. Giordano, I don't know if you've heard about me not playing basketball, but I think I'm going to play. I want to play." So he said, "Good. Yeah, that's great." So then I went to PNC, and I changed my hours to, we had to be in the gym by 3:30. We had to be in the gym by 3:30.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I'm so glad. I mean, some people say that's the best team that come out of Beaver River.
Oh, yeah. That's what I hear.
And they are. I mean, as far as the team that went the furthest, we're probably the one team that went the furthest that we could that year.
And you would have missed out on all of that.
And I would have missed out on all that fun. I mean, and I feel like I was a practice guy. I mean, I love practice. I was it's comfortable for me. I knew all the guys, and Coach didn't matter how much he yelled at me because I was very intense in practice. Games were a little different for some reason. I'd get nervous, and when it come time for me to go in the game, I'd be like crapping my pants. I mean, I'd get so nervous. Don't put me in. Don't. There was different times where a couple of the guys got in foul trouble, and I always figured like I probably, if there's an order on the team, I was about 7th or 8th man, probably 8th man. I know Bob said 6th or 7th, but I wasn't that high. And anyways, we had two guys foul out, and I'm thinking I'm number 8. And I remember
like on
guy
the bench.
fouled out, and Mr. Giordano's pacing back and forth on the bench in front of us. He stopped by me, go back down. Because he always had 30. You have 30 seconds to get your player in.
Okay.
And he used it to the max always.
Okay.
So and then he come back down, and there's a guy sitting next to me we needed height, and I was probably 5'4" or so. So
yeah.
I'm sitting there and I'm just, my stomach's starting to go, and I'm thinking, oh man, don't put me in. I would not be good in this situation. And I was talking to myself, I was just freaking out. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, the guy's name was Dean, sitting next to me. He goes, "Dean, you go in." I'm like, good. Wish I would have had, like now, like even 15 years ago, I mean, I would have ate that up. But not then. I'd be so nervous. But in practice, I mean, we had our second string. I mean, you can ask even Bob. Our practices, at the end, we'd have scrimmages. We'd scrimmage each other, go over plays, go over presses, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was a war. I mean, it was trash talking. It was shoving. We were nasty, and just made it difficult for the starters because we knew the plays too.
Right.
So our point guard, I mean, I knew him like a book, I knew exactly when he was going to pass and all that stuff, and I would steal the ball.
Yep.
And, geez, you got to stop doing that. I said, make better passes. Stuff like that, we were just.
Yeah, it's probably why they were so good.
And they always said, I know all of them, Bob and the point guards was Jim, and even they all would say, man, we were always so thankful when we got a game night. We didn't have to face you guys. But it was, I love practice. So anyways, I always made sure that I was there and in the gym by 3:30. So I worked till 3:15 from Lowville. And I had to be to the school, changed, and up in the gym at 3:30. And I never was late. So I don't know what coach would have done if I would have been 20 of or something like that.
Right, yeah.
So I never wanted to know.
Wow.
So yeah, so I always, maybe it was 3:00. No, it was 3:00, not 3:15. So I would get down in the locker room at 20 after, 25 after, and just change, get up in the gym. But that's how I spent my senior year in the winter. And then, so the next summer would have been 76. I got married in August.
Wow. Okay, so it was kind of like college.
Yeah.
Out the door then.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose
at the time I always thought I could have went again, but never. And I picked up a job working in the mill, working shift work, and that was not fun.
What shift?
We worked all three.
Oof.
Yeah. Ugh. Every week switched.
Yeah. Those evening overnights are.
Yeah. And I was into softball like major, so I would even try to switch. And I was playing with all my brother-in-law's team and stuff, and I would try to switch to go to the game, and I hardly even played. I mean, they had their starting 9 guys, but I loved it. I mean, I wanted to hang out with them and all that stuff. So,
right, yeah.
But it didn't always happen to switch shifts because that was a pain. Because then you had to go in and work 8 hours, go home, and go back in 8 hours later.
Right, yeah.
So you didn't get much rest. But
I remember I liked the evening shift because like it was a little higher pace.
Oh, you did that, yeah.
I did years of that. Yeah, with the police work. And like,
oh, it kept you busier.
Yeah, but with the fun stuff, like the little higher speed stuff. Yeah. Where like days are just like administratively more taxing. Mm-hmm. Not anything that couldn't like pop off during the days, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
But like those midnight shifts, I did midnights for 2 straight years, and then on and off after that. Man, that'll mess with you. Oh man, your sleep, you're
supposed to sleep that shift, but you can't.
Yeah, your body's supposed to be resting. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
I like our shifts were 7 on, and then you had like one, depending on the shift that you work, then you'd have 1 day off, and then you start off another 7 days with the next shift, however it was. Uh-huh. And then once a month you'd have a long weekend. That's how because the 7 on, 7. Sure. That's how it worked out. And and I did that for 5 years shift work. And Luann hated our shifts were 8 to 4, 4 to 12, and 12 to 8.
Right. Yep.
And the 4 to 12, Luann hated. And
because you're gone.
Because I was gone in the evening.
In the evening, yeah. Usually when you do stuff with the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's when everybody's out and about, going out to eat, whatever. I mean, we didn't go out to eat much, but so I would take her over to her sister's house that lived nearby us in Krogan. And then I'd pick her up after work. So we did that, not every night. Once in a while she would stay. But then once we had the Jeff and Jesse, then it was different because she had company. So I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do the rest of my life. So so I ended up quitting that. So.
And then what?
And then, because I love farming so much, I decided that I would try buying a farm.
Okay.
It was one of Luann's aunt and uncle, not plural. And yeah, that was very trying.
Yeah, working on a farm and running a farm.
Working and running is way different, yeah. And another thing, going back to my dad, he told me that that's not a very good farm.
Really?
But me, knowing everything in the world, said, well, I'm going to give it a try.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I can't remember if I went to him and asked him about it or I went to him and told him. I can't remember how that come about, but yeah, he was, again, not being pushy towards me or anything like that. Just said, yeah, that's not really the greatest farm. The land is not that great, and blah, blah, blah. But I needed to do something to get out of the, I think I needed to do something to save my marriage. Not that we were having any issues or troubles that I knew of, but sometimes,
sometimes you don't know.
Yeah. So I knew I had to do something, and she was all for it. She'd be a farmer's wife, but it didn't help that the year after we bought the farm, the price of milk bottomed out. I mean, it dropped way down. So we had struggles, financial struggles.
What caused that?
I don't know. I can't remember all the details on what happened, but I mean, we were getting, I can't even remember how much. It's so much a pound.
Really?
Something like that.
Okay.
How we got paid, I can't remember now, but anyways, it dropped down, and we had set up stuff accordingly when we had how much we were going to be getting. The first, when we first bought the farm, we set up payments and to our aunt and uncle, and they took their money right out of their paychecks, which was nice. And so, yeah, and then during that time was when we started meeting, our 10 of us, the group that we started meeting and started Rhema. But we were meeting every week. It started with Sunday school at New Bremen Church with your grandpa, Malzair, our teacher. And that's a whole nother story. But that's when we really, really learned about the Holy Spirit and learned, through not just Mel, but our group. It was 10 of us that were a part of it. 5 couples. And so that was all during this whole farm experience too. Mm-hmm. So when I look back, we've talked about it many times, looking back at if it wasn't for the farm, we probably wouldn't have got involved in that whole experience of like fasting and praying. Like your grandpa and grandma would go, they were going to go meet somebody. They'd call the group and say, we're going to meet so-and-so, talk to them about maybe how to start a new church, all that kind of stuff. Pray for us, and we're going to fast for 2 days or whatever, 24 hours. So we diligently did it.
Yeah.
And prayed and Luann and I think we drew closer and closer through the whole farm experience too, because financially we were literally broke, and a lot of cool stuff happened during that time. We'd go out to check the mail and there'd be money in the mailbox and just cool stuff like that. Just to help our faith. And yeah, so her aunt and uncle came to us one day, 4 or 5 years into it, and said that this isn't good. We're just going to have to ask you to leave, because we'd signed a land contract with them. So it wasn't really like we didn't go through a bank or nothing.
Yep.
So as humbling and stuff as that was, it was very hard, but it was a blessing.
Isn't that funny?
So
hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, I mean, it was so.
In the moment, that's like.
Man, I didn't have a very good. I would just flip out. I'd get angry on the farm during those times too, and we'd be in the barn, kids and everything, and I'd flip out at a cow or something wasn't working right, and I just
every farmer can relate to that.
Yeah, and I would just get angry. And, hey man, there's words coming out of my mouth that
like
that was not good. And Luann would say, "Okay, kids, we're going in the house." Yeah, and that would even trigger me
speaking
more.
In tongues again out there.
Yeah, and then when we started having those meetings and stuff with the 10 of us, man, the Lord did something to me, and just, everybody gets like mad once in a while, still, but
pretty normal part of life.
As far as my anger and my mouth language and all that was gone, and it was just the Lord just took it away, and yeah, so that was kind of my whole experience with the farm. Just a lot of stuff happened, but it ended up being, like I said, a blessing that because I don't know where I'd be today if we tried to stick it out and tried to fight through it and stuff.
Sure,
it just wouldn't have been good.
And a lot of time in those hard moments, like Nick had a great analogy in one of his recent episodes, and he was talking about how kind of the person in the fog. Have you heard that analogy before?
Yes.
Like, we all feel like we're walking in a fog until you look back and you see us struggling through that thing and you don't remember the fog. It's kind of a very interesting analogy that he made, and I probably butchered it there, but no, just really. Just the uncertainty too, that rocks me sometimes. Like if there's uncertainty in my work or uncertainty in the future, like it's very easy to let the fear start to seep in.
Yeah, so easy.
Yeah. And then add that on to like a failure in an area, or even if it wasn't your fault, like it can rock you to your core a little bit.
Well, we're men too, and to think that we failed at something is very, very hard thing to accept. And I did. I did fail. I stunk as a farmer. And like because like the father is seen to provide, protect, and lead. So like when one of those isn't there, really like our identity to the core gets shaken up a little bit. It's kind of like, then you start to question yourself, like, oh, well, is it me? Yeah.
Like do I need to do something else here? Or fascinating. Yeah. And it seems like from the outside, like I never knew that story. I've known you my whole life. From the outside, because you're being vulnerable. Like it's that's huge because, oh man, everybody that I talk to is like we're all the same. Mm-hmm. We all deal with the same stuff. We all struggle the same. True. We all have problems, and like, part of the reason why this podcast is running is because I want people to know those stories. And like, you're not alone, and it's okay. And like, life's going to hurt you. That's just kind of the nature of it. And how do you protect yourself? How do you build calluses of character? How can you get to the other side and then look back at somebody who's like about to make the same decision or going through the same hardship? How can I help that person? And I think it's just valuable.
Yeah. That was, but also, I think that shaped me to what I am today too, going through that, and with the group that we, I don't know if I should name names. I told Dwayne I wasn't going to name names, but anyways, your mom and dad were involved in it, and your grandpa and grandma. Yeah. And then there was 2 other couples besides us. And we went through during that time, we would get together and just ended up being a big monster prayer meeting. I mean, it was just, we were praying for the future. What are we going to do we feel like we need to start this church, and also individual. I mean, that was when we would get prayer. We'd be like, oh, this farming thing is not going good. And then they'd pray they'd all pray for us. And I mean, we'd spend hours together as a group. So those were special times, and it really did. It shaped us both into what we are today because of the experience that we had there to strengthen us, to grow. And we can't grow unless, sometimes I believe you can't grow unless something happens that you need to struggle with and all that stuff. And you need to get out of that. So, you need to move forward, and sometimes it's just that's why I say sometimes young people need to go through, especially finances. You don't have any money, kind of deal.
Yeah, like go struggle. Yeah,
to struggle with that. Yep. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how we made it through it, as a married couple, just at sometimes, but yet those were strengthening times for us. We're struggling. We need to figure this out together. I mean, but yeah.
Have you ever thought of the analogy of like iron sharpening iron? Like when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, okay, iron sharpens iron, whatever. But then you're like, iron causes friction, which sharpens iron. Like, actually it's a process of like grit. It's a process of like force. Yeah. And it's a process of like uneasiness. Like it's not easy. Like friction's
sounds awful corrosive. When it's together.
Friction, it's corrosive. It's not fun. And but that is actually what sharpens you going forward. Yeah. It's just like the theme of this whole entire episode is like, oh, well, you get sharper when you expose yourself to friction. It's important. In your marriage, in your business, go fail, sharpen. And in your marriage, look, it's hard to have a hard conversation. That's friction. Why? So you can be better. So you can be sharper. So you can fulfill.
That's what that means too, I think, just to move on.
Yeah, so you can fulfill your duty to each other and in your relationship to the best extent. A sharp knife, that's the purpose of a knife. Okay? Dull knife can cause damage for sure, but it's not fulfilling its purpose. So important. Yeah. What a good message.
Yeah. So
wow.
So that was that farm. That was our experience on the farm from 81 to 85.
Okay.
And then 85, that didn't work out, so we worked on another farm.
I thought you had learned. Never mind.
I was desperate to find a job.
Sure. So you worked on a different farm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went and worked for them. It was actually some friends that your mom and dad knew. And he came right to our house in Krogan and kind of had an interview with me. And next day he called and said, I'd like to try to work it out. So we worked with them. He'd give me way too much money for what in a house, and paid me really well. Vacation. I mean, this is a farm.
No kidding.
I had like 1 week's vacation.
So there's a person sewing into you.
Yeah,
not just
I
hiring
mean,
somebody.
he was. I think some of it was he knew what we had just been through because I shared a lot of stuff with him, and it was in Boonville. So we basically moved out of state.
Yeah, right. By
After
those standards.
living in our area, in this area all our lives. And but that only lasted a year. And they couldn't afford it, surprise.
Yeah.
And they ended up going bankrupt then.
Okay.
Within the next year, I think.
Okay.
It was not
farming's
good.
tough.
Yeah, it was not good.
Farming is
nice farm too. It was milk and parlor, and it was just fun. Yeah. We got to be really close, still close to this day.
Nice.
And let's see. So it was August of '86. We had no place to go. We went over to my mom and dad's and stayed in their little truck camper. And I didn't have a job. I was working for anybody and everybody that I could to make ends meet, kind of thing. I mean, obviously, we didn't have any payments. Well, we did. I did have, because when we left the farm, I was determined that I was going to pay back all the people that I owed money to, feed bill, all that stuff. Not bankruptcy was not in the picture at all. I was not going to do that. I'll pay back everybody. That was my determination. And or ours.
Yeah.
And I mean, my credit was awful. I mean, I might as well have filed bankruptcy, but I still that word was not going to be used in this situation. So that's at Colton's. He gave me a good paycheck. It was decent. I mean, I'd never made that much money up until, I did make good money in the mill, but. So
but the hours and the
that was
rough.
And so we were able to pay off some of the smaller ones. We still had the feed bill and all that. So I worked with Bob Chamberlain. He had me painting roofs and just giving me stuff to do. And then I worked with a couple other, a carpenter guy. I stopped into his office, asked him if he's looking for help, and he was a rough and gruff guy. I mean, he's like, "Oh, you want?" And I'm thinking, do I really want to work with this guy? So I did. I went up. He said the guys are working up in Lawville, so right up on that blah blah blah, right, some street. So I went up there, and they all look at me like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well,
I work here now."
He sent me up here to work, and so
I'm your boss.
So the guy, the owner, he comes up with a load of lumber, and he pulls in there going like 60 miles an hour, backs it up, and slams on the brakes, and all the lumber goes off the truck, like strewed all over the place, and takes off. And I looked at one of the guys that I was working with. I knew who he was. And I said, "Is he always like that?" Yes. And I said, "Okay, this is my last day."
Yeah. I will put in my notice right now.
And then I worked for another construction guy, and maybe 2 or 3 days, and there was something about it I didn't like about him and how he run his business.
Yeah, you're just kind of trying to find some footing.
Yeah, and I was, that year in '86, I don't even know how many W-2 forms. I think there was 8.
Whoa.
8 or 10.
Boy, the IRS was just mad at you.
I was just going from one job to the other, yeah. And
that's tough. Like jumping around trying to find
find my niche.
Trying to find a footing.
I couldn't
it's like
find
I need to be here.
That I just felt right about.
And then financial burden and like you're probably pinching pennies, trying to pay stuff back and
I had that over my head all the time. I'm paying off these bills, and so
it's pretty interesting motivator.
Yeah. So that's why I was doing all this stuff. I worked at the PNC at night, stocking shelves after closing, like at 12:30. And I worked with a guy from church, carpenter. So he'd pick me up there, and I'd work all day with him with no sleep. And just trying to make ends meet. And so that was all in 86.
Yeah.
So Luann was working at the Laval Journal, and not full-time, just whatever, like 30 hours a week maybe.
Okay. And
so she was busy doing that. And her boss, I mean, they were kind of close, and she was always sharing. So how's Ben doing? He would ask her every day, how's Ben doing? Was finding anything? And no, not yet. And so I was at Sherwin-Williams one day, and I met this Gary Monica guy. And he was coming in all the time because he was their installer doing flooring. And just a unique kind of guy. I mean, he always had one of those red derby hats, I call them.
Oh, yeah.
Plaid. It was plaid.
Okay.
So he stood out. And all jeans. He had jean jacket and cowboy boots. Just a funny guy. But anyways, because your dad worked at Sherwin-Williams and Brian Olmsted. And your dad and I have always been close since Louie and I started dating. I think we kind of hit it off way back then. So I would hang out there. I met Gary, blah, blah, blah. And Will said, boy, that'd be something you think you'd be interested in doing something like that. And sure, this is all in 86. So that was it. I mean, that was it. And so Luann's boss was he always asked, how's Ben doing? Has he found anything? And she must have mentioned something to him about Gary and maybe me doing some flooring. I had no clue how to do flooring.
Right.
No clue. And
brand new trade. Yeah. Brand new skills.
Yeah. So every year at Christmas, her boss would take everybody out for dinner at a restaurant. So we're up in Turin at the time it was Wolf's Den, but what is it now? Steak and Brew.
Steak and Brew.
We're there, and because of Gary's hat, he stood out. So anyways, we're sitting, and just happened to look up out the window, and him and his wife were coming in for dinner. She didn't like cooking, so which I found out later. And I just thought, oh, there's that Gary guy, just to myself. Wasn't 10 minutes or so, her boss comes up to me and taps me on my shoulder and says, hey, Ben, are you still interested in doing flooring? It took me, you could have knocked me right over, how'd you know that? And so I knew, must be Luann said something. He says, come here. So he took me out to the bar and introduced me to Gary Monica. And he said, this guy, here, Gary, this guy's Ben Roggie. He's maybe be interested in doing flooring. Gary's like, okay. He was just a funny guy. So I sat down next to him, and he basically interviewed me right there. And first thing he asked me was, do you know anything about flooring? I don't know anything. He goes, that's just what I need. So I didn't think nothing of it. I went back in with the rest of the people, and that must have been like a Saturday night. So Sunday afternoon, I'm home. We found an apartment, and we were kind of renting. And my phone rings, and it's Gary. Hey, you still interested in working or doing flooring? I'm thinking, yeah. Can you start tomorrow? I go, yeah. Okay. Be here around 8. And he had bought a place in Turin and had his own store. Mm-hmm. So I'm living in Beaver Falls, so I drove to Turin and started working with Gary Monica. And he taught me the ropes through the years, and worked with him for 5 years maybe.
Wow.
And I was his right-hand man. I did all his, he taught me, and I worked my way up to doing most of his installations. He hardly ever come out to the job site anymore. And, so that was how I got started in my career in 86. So I was born in 56. Yeah. So I started when I was 30.
Wow. Found a foothold.
And I right away enjoyed it.
No kidding. What about it?
Just the satisfaction and that you, even in like new construction, you are the last person in that house and the last person to leave, because everything is done until the
kind of like chef's kiss.
Flooring is the last thing.
Yep.
And most of the time, the people are ecstatic.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so that it took a while. I mean, I was doing tack strip. You know what that is? You put the nail things around the outside. Mm-hmm. Well, the nails are all pointing towards the wall. And he said, first thing, you put these down. So I put them down. I got half of them backwards, and I didn't know that they were supposed to point a certain way. And he was great. I mean, he was just patient, and
yep.
I mean, he was a drinker and smoker, and he wasn't a Christian or anything like that, but he was great to work for.
He's a good teacher.
He was just so good, He said, I'm not one to tell you how to do stuff. You need to watch.
I love that.
And that's what I did. I watched him do stuff, and great teacher. So I worked with him, and just, I think he actually got mad at me once, and I did something really stupid, and I don't blame him. And I did a vinyl job, and we moved the water heater out before we did the floor, put the floor down, and I rolled the water heater back in over the new floor, and there was a crease in the vinyl where I rolled that, and just I should have known. Yeah. I should have known better.
Yeah, well,
and he was mad.
Yeah,
like that's the only time that he actually. And his yelling was nothing. I mean, but he was yelling at me.
Yeah.
So
lesson learned.
Yeah, and now if I have to carry a water heater that's full of water, I'll just bear hug it, and I'm thinking I'm not gonna ever do that again.
You can hear him in your ear.
Yeah,
it takes a special kind of person to be able to be patient enough to walk somebody through a new trade.
Yeah.
Like an actual teacher.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, because he wanted me to learn his way of doing things. Because he had, even when I was working for him, he'd hire guys that said they were installers, and they did not do it like he wanted to do it. Maybe the end result might have been the same, but the process through it wasn't like what he wanted. So they didn't stay very long, because and I understood that, and I still understand it. I mean, even working with Jeff, my son. Now he does things his way,
right? Yeah,
which is fine. But when I worked with him, I would say, okay, so how do you want me to do this? Because I just ex-nayed everything that I taught myself.
Yeah,
because he's boss, and
right.
I'll do it your way. I don't care, because I know what the end result's going to be. Mm-hmm. So we had, and I got to know some really good guys that he hired to work with me, and so even one of them that we're still pretty good friends, and I got to coach his son in Little League.
Oh yeah.
So and he was my bench. I called him my bench coach. So just stuff like that
lasting relationships.
Would have never known him
through
unless I got to work with him.
Yeah.
So I worked with him for those 4 or 5 years, and you want me to keep going about my life?
Okay. Yes.
So
that's why you're here.
In around 91, there was openings up at Beaver Camp.
Okay.
There was
which is
office.
a Christian. It's Christian.
Yeah,
camp.
It's a kids camp.
For anybody who doesn't know,
it was really big. Well, it still is. It's still a great place.
Yep. For
kids for summer camp. They needed a maintenance person and an office worker. And Luann, that's right up her alley, doing office work. she did all that. She took that in like BOCES in high school and all that stuff. So that's
like perfect.
I didn't know if I was handy. I didn't know if I knew a lot about maintenance stuff, especially at a place like that with buildings all over and toilets all over and
a lot of moving
stuff like
pieces.
that. And so we talked to our pastor, and one thing he said, the only thing really he said was, well, if you guys really feel that you want to do that, you need just go somewheres by yourself and pray separately. Write stuff down that you feel the Lord's telling you about this, pros and cons. And then, so we went actually up to Happy Hollow, yes, when your grandma and grandpa had it.
Yeah.
And they had that little trailer next to their house. And we went there
exactly
and we just camped in there. We went in there and I don't even know if we took any food. We just spent 2 nights there, 2 days. And then at the end of the second day, we got together and compared our notes, and right to the T almost to we had the same pros and the same cons and all that stuff. So we went back to our pastor, showed him what we wrote down and he goes, go for it. So I'm not going to tell you to do it. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. It looks good. So we called the head guy at the camp and went and had an interview with them at their house. Got hired. Then I had to talk to Mr. Gary.
Ooh, yeah.
Because I was his man. I was his installer.
And he had invested a lot into you.
Yeah.
Time.
And I said, so I went and talked to him. Great. He was gracious. He was amazing. Well, if I understand if that's something you want to do, and that's where I always think it's funny, because the Lord uses non-Christian people, and I believe I was probably the only light in his life, because he was hanging out in bars and all that stuff. But anyways, we had a good relationship. So he give us the go ahead, give us a blessing, or whatever he thought it was, but it was good. So I give him my 2 weeks notice. Then we went up to Beaver Camp, and we actually moved up there. I moved out of our apartment, and we stayed in the motel. Up at the camp, they had several, probably 6 or 8 motel units that years ago somebody was getting rid of their motel units, and Beaver Camp bought them. Mm-hmm. And they set them all up around the driveway. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So we stayed up there in that little 1-bedroom or 1-bed apartment. Really they actually let us have 2, and Jeff and Jesse stayed in one, and we stayed in the other one.
Nice.
Unless they had to rent it out to somebody, then
then it was bunk up.
Jeff was bunking with campers, like counselors and all that. It was great.
They loved that.
They
that
loved
sounds fun.
it.
Yeah,
they loved it.
How long did you do that for?
Just that summer.
Okay.
And then so that summer, the administrator came up to me and said, "So we only really need you 4 days a week." Mm-hmm. I said, "Okay, that's cool," because we were living up there for free.
Sure. Yeah.
We had meals.
Right. You get meals and board.
We had no expenses.
Yeah.
I think I had paid all my farm bills. I can't remember, but so saying that, I'm gonna go back a little bit here, because our feed bill was quite a bit of money.
Okay.
And I was putting money aside for it, and so one night I had the money, and we went to these people that owned the feed mill went to our church at New Bremen. So I grew up with them. They're older. I mean, I graduated with their daughter, so they're my parents' age. And we called them, and I said, "Can we want to come over and talk?" So they said, "Oh, that'd be great." Walk in there, and we chit-chatted for, 10, 15 minutes, and then I got up and walked over to them and handed them my check. And they looked at it, they opened it and looked at it, and they looked up at me, and they started crying. So that was amazing. That just was such a good feeling. So that was our last bill. I don't know, remember if that was before Beaver Camp. I think it was. So, okay, back to Beaver Camp. I worked up there for the summer, and then I went to Brian at Sherwin-Williams. I got 1 day a week. I'd like to do some installations. And I actually also went up, and Gary had a big job one time, and he called me and said, hey, I got this one job. I wonder if you could help me. I said, yeah, I have Fridays or whatever. I think it was Fridays. It worked perfect. I helped him out a couple of jobs. And then they got me jobs at Sherwin-Williams. So I started installing like all day, and I was making bank. I mean, I was making because I didn't have any bills. Yeah. I was all done paying bills and no electric bill, no nothing. And so that was that summer, and then the fall they asked me to stay on in Luann. Luann was still in the office, so she was like a permanent part-time.
Yep. A permanent part-time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and my dad had bought a house in Castellan, and he said we could stay there. So once we got done that summer at Beaver Camp, we moved into that house. Mm-hmm. And we stayed there until we bought our house in New Bremen then, where we had for 30 years or whatever it was. So, yeah, so that fall, the boss, the administrator said that, but I only need you 3 days a week. Cool. I'll work carpet, do flooring for 2 days. So that worked. And then the following summer, we still worked up at Beaver Camp, but they only wanted me up there like on Fridays because that was the last day. And then, they had a lot of stuff to prepare for the kids, the parents coming up to get the kids and all that. So I worked 4 days, and I picked up another store in Carthage, and that kept me busy 4 days a week. And so that was my answer to go out on my own. So that's what I did. I picked up and just basically those 2 stores kept me busy every day, 5 days a week, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I used my dad had an old pickup that he let me use, and
it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat progression to see.
Yeah.
Like from the outside, of course I don't know any of that story. This is all like in the 90s, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
you weren't around,
I was a toddler. Yeah. I wouldn't have known any of this story. I just know you as like the businessman, carpet guy, like the flooring guy, right? So this is kind of what I was talking about before. Like once you pull back the curtain a little bit and just give a little bit, of opportunity, I'm loving hearing about this.
Yeah.
So that's quite a process. And then did you work at Ace next, or would have been True Value?
Yeah, that's what ended up then. That was in 2000.
Okay. And then you worked there for
till 2006. That's when we started Roggie's Flooring Center. Yeah. So that was all. I mean, it's just a lot of this stuff that happened in my life were big steps for me.
Sure, yeah.
Because I was,
you're shy little guy from a small town.
I just didn't know. I mean, but it really taught me a lot through those years that I started doing. I'm in people's homes, and I learned to communicate. I learned to visit to people, and it was just, now it's natural. I mean, I go into people's houses and I could stand there for 10 minutes talking and a lot of people have questions and all that. So
yeah, but what a good little like mission
yeah.
field
So
even.
it really and it's just sometimes people say, well, what start talking about church or something like that. Where do you go to church and just general stuff too. I mean, I learned how to
talk to
me.
people.
I called it PR.
Yeah.
Because it's, because you got to make a good impression. You got to be nice.
Yeah.
And which I don't think I really have a problem doing that.
No.
I mean, I'm very, very respectful to people. And so I actually, too, during that time between 90, whatever, 95 maybe, I started working for a guy in Watertown. Got to be friends with him, and he had a flooring store. So I quit working for the store in Carthage and worked for him until I went to True Value. And that was your dad had hired him to build their flooring department. Mm-hmm. And they started selling carpet, and they had a carpenter doing their flooring, carpet especially, doing all their installation.
Yep.
And he botched up a job. So the manager called me and said, hey, can you go to so-and-so's house and check the carpet job out? We installed it, but it's something wrong with it. Well, the seam was awful.
Oh, okay.
So I went with the manager, and we looked it over and stuff. And I said, well, they didn't straight edge the edges, because they just put the factory edges together, and they're not straight at all. And it had a little V cut all the way down the middle of it, because there's not as much yarn on the edge and all that stuff.
So you came in as a consultant, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what did they mess up here?
Can you fix it? And I said, it's already installed. I'm going to have to straight edge it. So that means it's going to be short on the outside.
Yeah.
But I can maybe stretch it. So I ended up fixing it, and I did another repair job for him. And then he approached me about, I think between him and your dad, I think they kind of said, we should have an in-store installer.
Yeah.
So they approached me about that.
Well,
and I talked to your dad and about it, and I talked to Luann, and they hired me. And I mean, that was one of the best things. I mean, it was
stability,
it was
security.
so nice, yeah. And they bought me a brand new van, and I mean, and that happened because I was buying vans. Like when I used my dad's truck for a little while, and then I found the van beside the road, parked out by the road. They wanted $1,500 for it, just a box van or a van.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought,
deal.
Well, I can get that. And that thing lasted me for 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, and I beat it. I mean, the only time I did anything with the oil is when the engine started knocking. I'd pour a couple quarts of oil in it, and it was fine for another. It run like you couldn't kill it.
That's awesome.
So I didn't really ever get the oil changed because I was putting new oil in it all the time.
That's one way to do it, I guess. It's a cheap way to do it.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I'd buy cheap vans. Mm-hmm. And then when I got hired by True Value, they promised, they said, I will get you a new van. I'm like, awesome.
Yeah.
So I used my van for maybe a year. And anytime something went wrong with it, they said, just take it to the garage and fix it. We'll pay it. All right. So, but one time it quit on me. I don't know. I think it was a fuel pump way out in Carthage, and had to get it towed. And it wasn't a week later, they had a brand new van in the yard. When I drove in, I walk in, and the guy says, "Hey, did you see the van out there?" I said, "Yeah, why? It's nice." I said, "That's yours." What? Cool. Brand new, whatever year it was. 2003 or something like that. So I had a brand new van, and then of course I was their installer and blah, everything was going pretty good, and then your dad approached me around sometime in 2005, towards the end of 2005. Might have been around Tyson's wedding.
Okay, yeah.
September-ish or whatever, October.
Yeah.
And I'm starting a flooring store. And I'd like you to come on board with me and be my installer. It's up to you. Pray about it. But he said, I feel like that's what the Lord wants me to do, start a flooring store. I'm going to do it, whether you come or not. I'll find somebody to install. Okay, cool. So at that time, Jeff was living in Spain.
Yeah.
And so it would have been around November, because we usually went over in November in a couple of weeks and just hung out with him.
Keep talking.
So that was what we did. Got to Spain. talked to Jeff about it, and he's like, oh my gosh, you got to go for it. So, and Luann was not on board. I had a good job at True Value. We making decent money and security, all those cool stuff.
Right.
And here I am taking a leap of faith and starting something new. And so we're flying home, and I normally I can sleep anywheres, but I couldn't get to sleep. I was just thinking about this whole opportunity, and we were probably halfway across the ocean, and I just thought, I'm just going to do it. I nudged Luann, and I go, I'm going to do it. She's like, do what?
What are you going to do?
And I said, I'm going to tell the Will that I'm going to do it. She's like, okay, I don't like it, but that's whatever. So we get home. Friends of ours that we met from Beaver Camp, actually, they lived in Laval at the time, came to the airport, picked us up, took us home. We pulled in the driveway, got out of the car, said goodbye. They backed out, and Donna, your mom and dad, drove in right behind as they were backing out. They were just happened to be going by, saw that we were home. Pull in the driveway. I walk over to them, and I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to join you and see what happens.
Yeah.
Awesome. You know, he's like,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the rest is history.
Unbelievable.
Till 2-3 years ago.
Yeah. How long?
I retired. So, yeah, so I was, so what was it?
2006 until
2006 to 22.
Okay.
21.
18,
21.
16 years?
16 years, yeah.
Wow.
And
amazing.
The thing of it was, your dad's a little younger than I am. 4 years, probably, something like that. 4.5. And I turned 65, and 64, I think it was, and I decided that I talked to we got together and we talked, and I said, I think I'm gonna retire when I can be full retirement age, which actually was 66 in the 4 months for me.
Okay.
So that was, one thing that we always said, not always, but we have said that we're going to be in it until we're not, the two of us. But it didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
And so he bought my half out in 2020. Yeah. And then I stayed on. I still installed, and I was an employee with Calder, and for the next 2 years.
Okay. Yeah.
And then got feeling like maybe, I retire, maybe we'll move.
Yeah.
We talked, Luann and I talked about it and thought, yeah, let's do that. Let's move. So.
Wow. And then it kind of came full circle there.
Yeah. So here we are. And now we're moved again. Moved back to Lowville. So,
where you belong.
Yeah. It feels good. It does.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What a cool story. I think we'll wrap up here in a minute, but I think that just sometimes when you're looking back, you're like, oh, okay, well, imagine if is it Gary? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Imagine he didn't hire you. Where does your life go from there?
Yeah.
And just all the steps cascading down the way. It's
it's crazy.
Pretty amazing to think. There's been a few times in my life and a lot of people that I know's life where it was like there was a definitive moment where you said yes, and then you went and did that thing, and it changed your entire life. Just that one decision.
Well, it's like you going to Connecticut with Corwin.
Yeah.
With his intentions of doing this. He said, you want to ride along with me?
Pretty much.
So you did it, and
yeah.
And look what happened. Here you are, nice, beautiful house.
Yeah.
Beautiful family. You met your wife out there. So yeah.
Yeah, just amazing.
It's just
for anybody who's listening, say yes, man. Just go after it.
Definitely, yeah. That's what I would say. Bottom line.
Because I would love to. Okay, so I definitely want to have you back on if you'll come back on a million times.
Yeah, love to. Yeah,
I definitely want to talk about marriage. We didn't get to talk anything about marriage, but you've been married for how many years? Oh man, this is a big quiz because
I'm better at it than Luann. Believe that.
Are you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so how many years?
So we've been married for this year. It'll be 49.
Okay, so that's coming up on a big one.
August.
Which one is what?
50.
What color is? Remember, it's just like bronze, silver.
Silver is 25.
Okay, so this is
I'm
gold.
not sure what bronze is, but gold is 50.
Ooh, and then 75 is platinum. I'm assuming.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
not too many people make 75.
No, yeah, you have to both
not
be like
together
100
anyway.
and known each other at 25. Yeah. So gold.
Yeah.
So there's definitely advice to tap into there.
Or 2026 will be 50.
Okay, yeah, next year. Wow.
Next August.
Amazing. I also want to go through like the mental space of starting your own business and taking that leap away from, like, in that situation, you were comfortable. Like, you had a good job, a good paying job.
Yeah, definitely.
You were stable. Like, you were good.
Oh, yeah.
Then to kind of throw that all away for uncertainty and like, man, I hope this works.
Yeah.
Is like a part of the entrepreneurial mindset that people don't get.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear of failure will stop people a lot of times from taking that jump. And you did that jump, and Dad did that jump, and you guys did it together. I'd also like to talk about, in the next time you can come on, partnerships, because it's very hard to get partnerships to work. And when I look at your business, that's what I see. I see a working partnership.
We've had a lot of people. I've had a lot of people say, your partners, are you 50-50? Yeah, we're 50-50. How's it working? Like, our partnership was different. I mean, I'll just say this. It worked out so well because we both had our expertise. Mm-hmm. Will's obviously was store stuff and all that. Yeah. And business and mine side. Was, his was the business. I'm not that great at the business end of it. I mean, I just relied on your dad. I mean, if he said something, I'd be like, you know more about that than I do.
Yeah.
But,
deferring.
So obviously my expertise was the installation end of it.
Yep.
And training guys, obviously.
And managing a team.
And doing that.
Scheduling,
and trying to be a good mentor with my helpers and all that. So that's why it worked so well, is because we had our own areas.
And it takes a certain amount of humility to kind of recognize that and stay in your expertise, stay in your lane, know what you're good at. And
like, I watched the store once in a while, like on Saturdays and stuff, but it was way out of my element. I mean, I love dealing with the people, and I knew products and I knew that stuff, but when I went over to the desk and started looking at that computer, I'm like, I don't know anything about this.
Is there a hammer around here somewhere? I could just get some tack strip up against the wall.
So and Will, your dad and I have had a great relationship through the. I mean,
good foundation to build.
I didn't even know your dad would have been like 15 probably when I started dating Luann.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably 15.
Yeah,
and for
so
something about it, I liked Will right from the beginning.
Yeah.
He's the one that talked to me the first time about the Holy Spirit. And so he's very special.
Well, there's so much. I mean, then at that point, there's decades of trust.
Yeah.
There's decades of
ball. I mean, we played ball for
teammates.
I don't even know
so
how
you
many
were
years.
already kind of teammates already.
We were.
So pitcher catcher too, battery.
Yeah.
So it's such a hard thing because like business can be tough. Business can be hard, very hard. Finding somebody that has an equal part in it as you do and functioning so well, I would love to tap into that next time you come on.
Okay, cool.
Also, coaching. You've coached basketball and the greatest church league softball team of all time, and you've been around sports. Been around sports for a long time.
I love sports.
So, I would love to talk about that too. Yeah. But this was absolute blast. I hope that you had a good time.
I did. This was awesome.
And I really do. In a lot of cases, I'm telling you, we went 2 hours, whatever it was. And I feel like I scratched the surface.
By so fast.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for being generous with your time. And I can't wait to have you back.
You're welcome. Yeah. I'd love it. Now that I'm got over the jitters.
Yeah, big doings here, you know?
Yeah.
But cool. That's it.
Well, you're a special guy, so.
well, special.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate
You've been
that.
Special to me anyways through the years.
Yeah, and that's likewise. And when I was kind of doing your little promo about like all the things you are to people, like you're also a really good friend.
Yeah.
Like, and that's been for
it's
long
been
time.
You were
I appreciate
a little
you
guy.
Yeah, you've known me longer than I have known you, and because I didn't, I can't remember back that far, but yeah, cool. Yeah,
I've known you since you were born. Broccoli.
Oh boy, there it is. Now we're gonna get roasted online. No, thank you for coming, and
you're welcome.
Look forward to the next time.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
All right, that's it, folks. I'll see you on the next one.